I'm going to read to you Gracie's guide. Gracie learns of the dangers of addiction. Gracie thought Fridays were the best. Not only was it the last day of school for the week, but it was also Science Friday, which meant there would be an experiment today. She scanned the other students in her room. Most of them looked pretty normal for a Friday, except for Connor. He always looked a million miles away. Well, maybe not a million, maybe just about 10, because that's about how far his house is from the school. Some kids get a little homesick during the day and want to go home so they can kick back and play a few games or help themselves to the snacks in the pantry, but not Connor. His desire to go home was out of concern for his parents. He had told Gracie all about his life one day at lunch. A kid shouldn't worry so much, his grandma always said. You just focus on your schoolwork and not what's going on at home. It just wasn't that easy. His grades were taking a nosedive because he was worried about his parents. He was worried that his parents would not be home when he got there. He feared they would be in the hospital or taken to jail. It was a heavy load to carry. His little brother and sister didn't seem to think about it, but more than likely that was because he always tried to shield them from the craziness in their home. Connor was almost like a parent to them. He made sure they were fed, clean, and even helped them with their homework. He set his clock every morning so the three of them got up, dressed, and made it to school on time. Connor was the one who kept an eye on his parents when they drank too much alcohol or took too many pills. He was the one to call his grandma to hurry over and make sure they were okay when he found them passed out on the floor. At times, it seemed too much for him. Gracie found it hard to imagine carrying such a heavy burden around. He was so distracted that Miss T, his teacher, made him move his desk beside her because he just couldn't keep his mind on his work. It was time for their weekly science experiment, which was usually something pretty cool. So far this year, they had learned about various animals, fossils, and weather patterns. Connor thought science was more fun than all the other subjects. That is, until he was paired with Gracie. Really? His partner was a girl? Ugh! Gracie didn't care who she was paired with. She just loved experiments. Connor, on the other hand, thought Gracie was the most talkative kid in the entire school. If there was no one else around, she would talk to the wall. He was sure of it. Connor was a super quiet person. He did not want to hear the constant yakking while they were working on their project. He really wanted to go home now. The two of them met at the science center in the back of the room. She had a notepad, pen, and a magnifying glass. Connor shook his head when he saw her set down with all that stuff. What is up with all this? He asked. Well, if there's anything you should know about me, Gracie began, it's the fact that I do not go anywhere without my spy supplies. Humph, Connor groaned. Their assignment today was on dissection. How cool was that? They were working together with Miss T to cut into an earthworm and examine it on the inside. Suddenly, things began to look up. This was the best science experiment ever. Connor laughed to himself at the thought of Gracie and all of her stuff. He was sure she was going to freak out when she saw the worm. Gracie wrote in big letters across the top of her notebook, "Parts of a worm." And she excitedly picked up her magnifying glass. Do you want to cut into that thing or do you want me to? Gracie asked anxiously. I don't care, Connor replied as he sat there, shocked at her excitement. Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've probably used a knife more than you, she blurted out. You see, I help my mom cut up veggies, and that definitely gives me an advantage in this situation. I can cut that little dude in a jiffy. Connor didn't expect Gracie to be willing to touch the worm. She was still talking, but he had tuned her out. He agreed to let her do it, just so she would be quiet. The next hour was the most awesome hour he had ever spent in school. They explored all the inside parts of an earthworm. Surprisingly, he and Gracie worked pretty well together. In fact, he even used her magnifying glass a few times. At the end of the day, Miss T explained to the students how to finish their project. They had to work together to identify all the various organs in the earthworm and then compare a worm to the human body. Gracie turned to Connor and asked him if they could meet at the library to work. Connor felt sure he couldn't leave his responsibilities at home to go down the street to the library, but he told her he would ask and see. They exchanged phone numbers as they headed for the bus. Connor's dad agreed that they could meet on Saturday morning. The weekend couldn't get there soon enough for Gracie. She was super excited when it finally came. She hopped in the car with her mom and they headed for the library. Connor lived 5 houses down the street from it. Gracie could not believe her eyes, though, as they approached his house. There were 3 police cars there and 2 ambulances in his driveway with lights flashing everywhere. She held her breath as they slowly approached. Connor was sitting in the yard with his little brother and sister. A policeman was there, and the kids were crying. Gracie told her mom they had to stop and help. Her mom talked to an officer and explained to him how they knew the kids and they were concerned. So he allowed them to go to Connor. Gracie quickly learned that Connor's parents had taken a dangerous drug called heroin, and it caused their hearts to stop beating. They rushed them to the hospital to try and save their lives. She didn't know what to say. Her mom assured her that it was helpful to be a friend during this time and to stay with them until their grandparents arrived, which only took a few minutes. Connor's grandma thanked them for staying, and they quickly loaded the kids into her car and sped away. Gracie found out later they were able to save Connor's parents, but their problems were far from over. The children were taken out of their home and placed with their grandparents, while their parents went to a special place called rehab. She wasn't sure what that meant, but her mom explained to her it was a place for them to get help over their addiction. You see, Gracie, Mom explained, when people have an addiction, it means they have an urge to do something, and it's hard to control it or stop it. It usually has to do with alcohol or drugs. People can also be addicted to cigarettes. These types of substances are harmful to our bodies. They can hurt you or even kill you. Drugs change the way a person thinks and feels. It's very hard to feel helpless, like you cannot stop doing something when you want to stop using. Addiction can cause parents to take their kids' birthday money and spend it on buying drugs or cigarettes or other harmful things. It can also keep them from taking care of things around the house. Using drugs can change a nice person and make them mean and selfish. The person with an addiction is often distracted and doesn't take care of things. Gracie wanted to learn more about this. She wondered why a person would do something if it's harmful to their body. It just didn't make sense. Well, some people take medicine that doesn't belong to them. Others abuse the medicine that the doctor prescribes to them. When you're sick, the doctor gives you a prescription for medicine that will help you. Those are legal. But if you take medicine that wasn't meant for you, then it can hurt you. You must only take medication the way a doctor tells you to. Otherwise, it hurts you. Your body can become addicted to it, and you can hurt others, even those you love. Gracie was relieved when Connor was at school on Monday morning. It seemed he was more focused and worked harder on his schoolwork, since he knew his parents were safe and getting help. It still wasn't easy for him, but the school counselor was helping him work through it. He hoped his parents would get better. The counselor talked with the students in their class. She informed them of ways to help Connor and others whose parents suffer with addiction. If you fear your parents struggle with drugs or alcohol, please tell a caring adult. You're not betraying them by asking for help, the counselor stated. A caring adult can be a teacher, a school counselor, a relative, or a pastor if you are connected to a church. The students were also encouraged to be a friend to each other and to support those who are going through the trauma of a family member struggling with addictions. Gracie was glad that she was friends with Connor. And he no longer grumbled when he was paired with Gracie. They found out they had a lot in common. They both liked pizza with extra cheese, chocolate chip ice cream, and a good mystery. You know, just like the message here in this story, if you feel that someone you know is struggling with addiction, tell a caring adult. If there is no one for you to talk to right now, I'm going to put this little card up for you to see. There is a helpline that you can call, and there's also a website. And it says, there is hope, there is help here at home. Thank you, my friend.